On this episode of Doing the Most, we're going to help you make your very first bottles of wine. There's a lot of homebrewing content out on YouTube these days, and a lot of it presumes that you're going to start by diving in and buying a bunch of gear. Carboys and airlocks and buckets, all the stuff that you see in these videos, and if you've never brewed before, I can tell that that would kind of be intimidating. We've tried to take everything we've seen on the platform and narrow the scope, kind of remove everything that isn't absolutely necessary to brewing, and use the doing the most perspective to brew very, very beginner-friendly recipes. So we're going to be doing this very differently than I normally brew. I hope if you're a very, very beginner brewer that you find this content helpful. We're going to get you brewing with as minimal investment as possible. So in this video, we're making wine. And we're going to be doing some slightly unconventional brewing practices through the course of this video series. And one of them can be a little bit dangerous if you're not paying attention. That practice is that we are not going to be using an airlock for any of these brews. Instead, we're going to just use the lid that comes with our fermentation vessel and make sure that it stays on secured but loose so gas can escape. And then after a period of time when fermentation has slowed down, we'll start to keep it tight, but burp it a few times every single day so that way pressure doesn't build up in the fermentation vessel. This is not a commonly recommended route, and it's the reason airlocks exist. They're much safer. For that reason, we recommend buying a beginner brewing kit, and we recommend the Craft to Brew series of beginner kits. Links to those will be in the description of this video, so that way you can pick one up. It comes with an airlock, which provides that level of safety. But if you're following this video to the letter, just remember to pay attention, release the pressure from your fermentation vessel regularly, and avoid building up pressure that can lead to a catastrophic failure of your fermentation vessel. If you don't want to buy an airlock, but you still want kind of the insurance policy that an airlock provides, you can use a piece of your tubing from your siphon, just cut a hole in the lid of your fermentation vessel, put the tubing in and hot glue it, then run the other end of that tubing into a jar of water. That will act as a blow-off, which is technically an airlock. You can also take a balloon, clean it really thoroughly, turn it inside out, poke a hole in it, put that over the top of your vessel, and use that as a temporary airlock. Either method can work really great for your first couple of brews. Another thing we're not going to talk about in this video is the hydrometer, which is arguably the most important piece of home brewing gear you can have. If you're just starting out, you might not want to spend 10 or 12 bucks on a hydrometer, but I guarantee you it is an invaluable tool and should be the first piece of home brewing gear that you purchase. I cannot stress enough how important it is to have a hydrometer. It tells you your starting gravity and your final gravity, which helps you understand what ABV your brew is, and it tells you a little bit about the progress of your brew as you're moving through the primary stage of fermentation. And for things like wine or mead that might need to be back sweetened, it helps you create a consistent level of back sweetening batch to batch if you're working on perfecting a recipe. Now that said, I am going to show you the alcohol by volume of the brews in this series, so don't worry, you'll have a rough estimate of the alcohol content of this brew. For this wine, we're going to be using boiled bread yeast as our nutrient. Now typically, I recommend a nutrient called Fermade O, which is an organic form of nitrogen that serves as a great nutrient for yeast. But boiled bread yeast is an acceptable alternative, and we're going to be using it in a kind of interesting way here. We're not going to be pre-prepping it, we're going to be prepping it as part of the must that we're mixing up. To use Fermade O, you would use a calculator online to determine how much nutrient you need and then add it by the schedule that you prefer. But when using boiled bread yeast as a nutrient, you actually need to use 3 times as much as you would if you were using Fermade O. So I've taken all of the thought out of that for you. I've calculated how much nutrient, I've done the math and come up with the quantity of bread yeast that you will need to boil to act as nutrient for your brewing yeast. The bread yeast is going to be boiled to inactivate it, thus making the nitrogen in that yeast accessible to your brewing yeast and helping your fermentation go smoothly. And lastly, in my spiel contextualizing this brew, sanitizing. I like to use a no-rinse sanitizing solution called Star San. It's great. You mix it up, you dunk all your stuff in it, you shake them off, you don't have to rinse it. It's sanitized so that way microbes from your environment are much less likely to get in your brew. However, you may not be interested in purchasing Star San or another sanitizer just yet. Never fear. You can dunk all of your brewing gear in hot water, 160 degrees Fahrenheit or above, for about 3 to 5 minutes, and that should sanitize it. Just make sure that temperature stays above 160 degrees in that vessel. The easiest way to do this is to bring a giant pot of water to a boil, let it cool for about 10-15 minutes, and then dunk all of your gear in there for a minute or two. Alternatively, and I think possibly an even easier option, is to put all of your gear that's going to touch your brew into the dishwasher on the sanitize cycle, using no soap, no rinse aid, just in there on the sanitize cycle. It's going to blast all of your gear with high heat and steam, thus sanitizing it in the dishwasher, so it can go right from the dishwasher into your brew room and be used to brew. Sanitizing is one of the most important things you can do to ensure the success of your brews, so don't skip this step. Anything that's ever going to touch your brew should be sanitized prior to use. All right, you ready? Let's get in here and make some wine. The gear you're going to need to make this simple wine include a knife, measuring cups, measuring spoons, prep bowls, a carboy or water jug, or, the bottle that your grape juice comes in, a siphon and tubing, and bottles. If using crown cap bottles, you'll also need crown caps and a capper. If using standard wine bottles, you'll need corks and a corker. The ingredients for this wine are 1 gallon of white grape juice, 1 black tea bag, 1 sliver of grapefruit peel, 1 sliver of lemon peel, and boiled bread yeast nutrients. The yeast for this wine will be K1V 1116. We're going to be fermenting this wine in the container it came from. In this case, we're going to be using a glass carboy, but feel free to ferment in a plastic jug. We're going to use our knife to cut off about a thumbnail-sized piece of lemon peel and grapefruit peel. You can use the rest of the fruit however you want. That's all we need for this wine. These citrus peels and the oil that is in them will provide just a little bit of intrigue and nuance to this wine that will zhuzh up your grape juice just a little bit and take it a little bit beyond just being fermented grape juice. Then we're going to pour out half a cup of our grape juice, which we will just drink because we don't need it. And another cup of our grape juice will be used to boil our bread yeast and steep our black tea bag. The bread yeast goes right in, then we're going to pop that in the microwave for a few minutes to boil. We want to completely destroy the cell structure of that yeast. Once that's done boiling, give it a little bit of a stir and be careful when you stir. Then we're going to put our black tea bag in and we're going to steep that for 5 minutes to leach out some of the tannins from the tea. After 5 minutes, we'll bring our bag out, we'll press all the liquid out of that tea bag, and that can be discarded. Then our nutrient tea mixture goes back into the jug. Make sure to get all the last little bits out of that measuring cup. Put your lid on, and we're going to give that a nice big shake, shake, shake. And then we will add our slivers of citrus peel, the lemon and the grapefruit. And those peels will ride out the entirety of primary fermentation. Next, we're going to open up our yeast packet. This is a white wine yeast. That's going to go directly in on top. And then we'll give it a little bit of a shake just to make sure the yeast is all hydrated. Put our lid on and then loosen it
to make sure that gas can escape the top of the carboy. It is very important that we let gas escape, especially since we're not using an airlock for this brew. And that's basically it for primary. You just mix it up and then burp it along the way.
In the first couple weeks, feel comfortable leaving that cap on, but loose, so that way gas can escape. And now, when you're fermenting, you start out with quite a bit of sugar, and a lot of that's traveling up on those gas particles, and so some of that can gum up the threads of your lid. So you want to make sure that every day you're double checking that it is loose and pressure's not building up. After 2 weeks, you can start to seal the bottle, but every day, 3 or 4 times a day for that 3rd week, you're going to want to make sure you burp it to let all the built up pressure out. Do not skip this step, because if pressure builds up in a glass jug, you are destined for disaster. It can be not only dangerous, but also a huge mess to clean up. By the 4th week, off-gassing should really diminish. And really, after 4 weeks, you can be pretty certain at this ABV and with the yeast that we've selected, that fermentation is probably done. And that means it's time to get it into bottles anyhow. One last time, because I can't stress this enough, it is a safety issue. If you're using a glass carboy and you're using the cap to protect your brew, make sure you are regularly checking to make sure that pressure is not building up inside of the carboy.
At this potential ABV and with these nutrients, fermentation should finish up in about a month. After that, you can put it in your refrigerator for a week or 2 to cold crash it. That will help drop some of the stuff out of suspension. And then we can get it into bottles by using our siphon. We're going to pump the auto siphon a couple of times here to get the flow going. And we'll fill these wine bottles up just past the shoulder of the bottle. We want to leave ample room in the neck of the bottle so we can put our cork in. And you want about 1 inch to 1.5 inches of space between the top of your wine and the bottom of your cork. We're just using the hose clamp here to clamp off the flow when we switch bottles. Very simple process. You could also use a bottling wand for this. Costs you a few dollars at your homebrew shop, but it helps you control the flow a little bit better because it uses a valve when you're filling from the bottom of the bottles. So we got 4 750 milliliter bottles and 1 12-ounce bottle, which we will cap. The rest of the bottles will get corks. And there you have it, 5 bottles of wine you can enjoy now, or put back for 6 months to a year and see how they age.
This has been bottled for about 6 weeks, so let's go ahead and try some homemade grocery store ingredient wine. Now, we bottled this wine dry. Some people might want it a little bit sweeter, so if that's the case, you can sweeten it in the glass with a little bit of simple syrup or grenadine. Both great options. Look at that color and clarity. It's really impressive what a little bit of cold crashing can do to clear that up. It's such a clean ferment. It's really cool how it kind of still smells like white grape juice. On the nose, you pick up just a touch of that zestiness in there. All right, let's dive right in. It's smooth, easy to drink. It's got a low tannin profile, nice nuance from that zest. You can pick up just like a touch of citrus in there. It's not exceptionally alcoholic, and part of that is that we didn't add extra sugar to bump up the ABV. So our ABV is actually quite a bit lower than a normal off-the-shelf table wine. Now, you could add a little bit of sugar for fermentation to up the ABV on that. Just be careful. I wouldn't go over more than 1/2 pound to 3/4 pound of sugar in order to increase the ABV. But if you want a table wine that is drinkable, quick, and relatively crisp and refreshing, nice white wine, this recipe works. And like I said, we're about 6 weeks from the time that I put the yeast in here, so it's a very quick turnaround. fruity and light with a kind of medium finish, so it doesn't wash away quickly, but it doesn't last too long. It doesn't overstay its welcome. I could see this being great with a nice white fish, maybe even fish and chips, you know? Treat yourself. If you like this video, please consider subscribing and ringing that notification bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming content. And of course, if you're an experienced winemaker, please drop a comment for beginners down in the comment section. Let them know what your advice would be and how to make a nice, inexpensive, and simple homemade table wine. Until next time, happy brewing and cheers.
Homemade brews and various how-tos, everything from mead to roast, bake creation, fermentation, inebriation, doing the most.